Paltrocast.
If we do this, are you ready?
I was
Are you
born
ready?
ready, Ross, as a person
Okay.
that
Whoa, he's here. Darren is here all day. Ready?
thank you for slating that. Now, aside from talking to media, good day for you so far, Ross?
It's a great day. In fact, how you been? It's been so long, Darren.
Well, what's also been so long is you coming out with a solo album. So all the above is
This is true. This is true. And I must say that not being familiar with your work, I took the time, briefly said here, to go to your podcast and check out your video on YouTube. And I selected about 5 or 6 artists that are somewhat in the ballpark, like Chicago, Deep Purple, Judas Priest, and Kenny Loggins. And the majority of these clips happen to have started with your question, which is, shall I call you Rich or Richie or Richard or Nick? Kenny, Ken, or Kenneth, etc. So we can settle this immediately. My name is Ross. You could call me Raw, and I will call you Dare.
okay. That works for me. So I'm going to keep giving you compliments because you checked out my work and you did your homework. And
there you go.
You know, when I think of the bands that made me want to play bass and guitar in the first place, that was your work with Journey. That was pretty top of the line right there. For better or for worse, that Separate Ways video made a big impact on me. And still decades later, it holds up. But
yeah, it was one of the first in its time, I guess, wasn't it? And incidentally, have you seen the parodies of that?
Yeah, Cruiserweight had a good one. That
Shredder. Oh, it's just fantastic. Speaking of which, of all other alternate songs, did you hear? You heard Glee's version of "Don't Stop Believing,"
sure,
right? Did you ever hear Alvin and the Chipmunks do it? Very few. No, check it out, people. Check it out. It's the Glee arrangement, and it's done very well. But yet, I digress. Here we are. I must say, Darren, that this is one of the first solo artist interviews. So here we are.
Yes.
And I'm very glad to be here. And thanks for taking the time with me in all serialness.
Well, your discography beyond Journey, beyond the solo record, The Storm, which I could talk to you for a long, long time about, the Todd Rundgren story, etc. But let's talk about the solo record. How long did you actually spend recording it?
Well, it was done in stages in and about Journey tours and Journey activity, which was always very thick and involved. I began about 11 years ago cutting the first song. You've got the album, right?
Yes.
And you listen to it?
Yes.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. That wasn't clear to me, and don't be confused, people, but I just got here. But thank you, Darren. Yeah, I began about 12 years ago cutting the first song chronologically, which was Wild Kingdom.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Well,
and that began with my musical cohort, Eric Levy, on Rhodes, and I played the Calliope patch on a DX7 of all things, but the song was written with that sound, and so that's how it developed. And then I brought in Carl Palazzo and Walfredo Reyes Jr., who did all the percussion on that, and I actually did. Yeah, and then brought in Mark Russo of the Yellow Jackets and Doobie Brothers.
Yeah.
And I did the bass last, actually. So that's how it began. And subsequently, I cut Tomland in 2016. Tomland, if I may say, is actually a bass solo idea that I began developing in the 70s, and I finished writing it, per se, in the mid-'80s in my off time. And in 2016, I figured that the right musicians for that song would be Prairie Prince and Miles Shawn, and of course, Eric Levy, who was on every song on my album. So the theme here is, in having picked the right musicians for the right songs. Wild Kingdom having this Caribbean, possibly Afro-Cuban, Latin feel to it, having Carl Perazzo and Walfredo on that was perfect. Carl is also on many of the songs because it suits his mastery of percussion. But Tom Land was the second recording done here at, at the Sandbox. And so quite a few songs got actually recorded before the lockdown. And that includes Lowrider with yet another combination of musicians, and the combination of Incident and Nishabor and Senor Blue with yet another different twist in terms of personnel. There are things that I cut afterwards, but for the most part, most of it was done before the lockdown. So everybody has this 2.5 year hiatus. What happened there? So in the meantime, during the downtime there, did a lot of post-production work. We actually took all of the material with our close associate and co-producer Steve Jarvis, and we went to 25th Street Studios in Oakland and actually reamped and reprocessed all the inputs, all the tracks. Not that we used them all in that way, but we went in and basically reprocessed all the tracks on all the songs and came back out of there with the 25th Street sophisticated sounds. We used processors and devices that we didn't have on our own, including Fairchild and GMO. We used the big room with its fully tuned full range speakers and microphones to reamp sounds. And then we came back and mixed here with Jacob Stowe, also co-producing with Eric Levy. And then we did our mastering with Mr. Romanowski at Coast Mastering in Berkeley, just over the hill. So it's been about 12 years in total, hit and miss according to who was available in terms of musicians and whether we could agreeably work with the lockdown mandates. So it's been a long time. It's been a long time in the process.
And worth the wait. And you called out the Tom Land track as the second one you did. Great music video for it, very atmospheric. But it's interesting to me to hear that it started off as a bass solo of sorts, because I hear vocals being added to that. It sounds like a real song of sorts.
Yes, addressing your last statement, there are so many people who have said exactly the same thing, Darren. It began as an idea that I have and can continue to play all by myself, and it makes sense. But as an arrangement and the way it was orchestrated, many people have said, where are the vocals? Well, in this modern new world of remix, that may happen at some point. Yet, I am happy with it the way it is. So there can always be another version and another tracking number.
Fingers crossed for that.
There you go. Yeah.
And then,
anyhow, I'm very happy with Tom Land as the first release.
And another track of note, No One Wins a War. What a powerful title for a song. Is that about any one particular part of your life, or is that just being a veteran of 50 plus years in the music industry? You now know that.
All of the above. The answer is yes. Yeah, it was a time in my life in which there were decisions to make and not being sure. And the song reflects questioning life and what to do. And it's a conversation. You could envision it as a conversation between two people, one questioning life and the other giving the answer. And like another song on the album, it is tentative, it is plaintive, it is delicate. It's like, what am I supposed to do? And it's reflecting in the way it's played. So to me, it's very emotive, and it's one of the few songs that happen very quickly. And there's not much to it instrumentally. What happened quickly was the 5-string bass part that is the foundational part and the resulting melody. Many of my songs have taken a while to brew and be reshaped and reformed, but No One Wins the War is one that happened very quickly.
Got it. So
Yeah.
one thing that I'm curious about, anytime I'm speaking to a legend, and I called you the legend. You did not say, "Hey, Darren, as a parameter of this interview, you must refer to me as a legend." No, these words. When I speak to somebody who's been on the road for as many years as you, there's two categories. They either have everything that they've ever done or touched, like your Rick Nielsen's of the world, or they have absolutely nothing, and you'd have no idea that a Rock and Roll Hall of Famer lives in that house, like Paul Stanley. Which one of the two are you? Because I can't tell.
I live quietly in a typical neighborhood, and I've lived in several homes throughout my career, and there have been occasions in which next door neighbors didn't find out that I was a rock star until years later. We live quietly and privately. If you were to walk into my home, you wouldn't necessarily see that it's a rock star's home, except for one room like an entertainment music room that is pretty well filled up with record awards and a few instruments.
Mhm.
But it's not like I'm on display. Here at my studio, where I am free to decorate as I please. Thank you, dear. I've taken all the other all the other record albums and related memorabilia and pasted them up everywhere in the building, except for where they might interfere with acoustics.
Got it.
So yeah, I guess I wouldn't say I'm not conspicuous or ostentatious, but I'll be at the Safeway store and somebody will go, "Hey, you look familiar." So I have the ability to have enjoyed celebrity and being known, but I have the ability to sort of
Turn it
go about.
off.
Well, no, I have, better yet, I have the ability to go through life without being crowded by well-wishing admirers. It's somewhere in the middle between the two that you described.
If you come into the Iridium in New York, you'll be mobbed. But then if you go next
I
door,
will?
I think
Boy,
you could.
that's a compliment. Well, it depends on who's playing, right?
If it's you or one of your cohorts, they'll go, "Oh yeah, there's Ross Valory," and then you
Yeah.
go to the Stardust Diner 2 doors down. They go, "I don't know who that is." So
Hey,
it's this
what do you want on your burger?
exactly.
Next.
So is there a touring planned in the works in support of this record?
Not yet. Not yet. I've been happy enough, and most of my energy has been spent uh, in off time and available time on recording. All of the above represents all this material that's been sitting for years, if not decades, and there's a whole bunch more. And one would say, well, you've got all this stuff that's been sitting. What about new stuff? Well, as the old material has been brought forth, new ideas and new songs are developing. And that's where my energy has been at. I would love to play. I would love to perform. But when I do so, there are certain requirements,
Mhm.
practical requirements. This is about choosing a venue and having promotion, having a full, sophisticated but simple production, lights and sound and repertoire. What will I play for what audience? But next in importance is, how do I get those musicians that I would want that could play all of the material in one place at the same time? A lot of these guys are a lot busier than I am. You got Carl Palazzo, who's on the road with Carlos Santana
Sure.
a lot. You've got Mark Russo that's out there with the Doobies, as he has been for years. He's busy. So there's just a lot of players that I would love to have, to cover the bases and be able to play all the material or most of it. So that's a practical problem. But then there's the reasonable question regarding putting together a staff and a production team and having a budget. It'd be nice if I could just slip into a festival or be added to the bill on the venue and have a core group of people that could simply just play what we do well, rather than having the need to cover the album. Ultimately, I would like to cover the album or most of it and have some of those key players in place, or at least to have their choice of a substitute player.
Mm-hmm.
I have a core group of people that are local and not quite as busy that I've been working on with my new material, which includes Vernon Ice Black. He also appears on Incident, Nishabor, Senor Blue, and Lowrider. And there's a fine drummer, Paul Spina, who's also local, who appeared on Incident and Senor Blue. And there's a fine player also on saxophone, Bobby Strickland, who I've worked with in the past. He played in Cyclops with me, and he and I were part of the Todd Rundgren orchestra for the Second Wind project. So there's a possibility of taking just this core group, including, of course, Eric Levy, and doing something, but it's just not on the books yet. I'm in between promoting what I'm doing with you and others, as I will in the near future. I'm working on all the other material. And what I could say about that is, as people will hear the album, they might be surprised that a lot of the material is disparate and varied. There's a lot of variety, as you well know, Darren. Songs are completely different from each other, and there's different musicians suiting different songs. It's a really broad horizon, and it's kind
In
of
a good
it's
way.
it's kind of bold. All I can tell you is the next batch, which is on the table, there are 5 or 6 being arranged and recorded. It's even broader than what you hear now. And the overall effect, and as we put together our submissions for genre and categories and subcategories, the best that we can come up with is world music.
Okay.
Because I mean, there's obvious influences on my songs in terms of jazz or Latin jazz or even Latin rock, but there's a completely different style for Tomland and yet another style for No One Wins the War. And then there's what is Lowrider? You gotta be kidding me. That was a complete fluke. I've always had songs that I'd liked. I thought, yeah, I'd like to record that sometime. And I just threw out the idea, and quickly we came up with the proper people to record that. But
Right.
so what I'm describing is a pretty broad mix. It's almost like a buffet, but you listen to the album, I think the sequencing from the top to the bottom, it's an adventure in terms of tempo and key and dynamics. I think all the songs thread together pretty well as an adventure, even though
Great.
they're quite different. So the point is, as I'm continuing to record more material, that horizon has gotten broader. So you can't go, okay, this is jazz, so put it on the jazz playlist, or this is Latin jazz. You can't quite do that. But my hope, and it's not with this big incentive of carving my way into the music business for another career. I simply want to share the music. And so we'll just see what happens as these songs filter separately onto different playlists. It's kind of a wacky bold thing, but the point is, I'm not concerned about whether it will be successful. or not.
Well, isn't just finishing it and having it out the success?
Exactly. Even
Yeah,
before the lockdown, when we finished
yeah.
Incident and Senior Blue, I was looking at the other three players. There's only five players. I was looking at the other three as we completed the meat of the basics, and I said, "That's it. I'm done. I'm. This is it." And they're going, "What do you mean?" I'm going, "This is success. The rest is in sharing it." And frankly, Darren, there were two ways I could have gone about this. And my initial idea, which is not unthinkable, was give the music away. Give back what I've been given by all the Journey fans and the people that supported me and all the other people in that organization. I could just give it away. Hey, but I would have to be in business to do that. I would have to yet, anyhow, form an intellectual property company,
Mhm.
copyright all the material, trademark my name and likeness and logos and word marks, etc. And I would have to do that much in order to protect it from being abused by other people. Okay.
Yeah. IP, the choice of IP.
The second more practical thing was for would would be for me to consider just going grassroots.
Mhm.
Simply do the work what I've done in setting up the copywriting and all that, and present music to YouTube and to Spotify and Apple Music, etc., and just see what happens and let it grow. But I came to the conclusion about a year ago that with the corroborated advice of some professionals with experience in the modern music scene, hey, that would be nice, Ross, but if you really want to get noticed, you need to make a little noise. No problem.
You're
So
making
I
noise now.
engaged, I engaged a very fine manager, Lil Gary, and she
Mhm.
and I and other people on the team vetted and researched publicists and social media strategists for a time period that revolves around the release of tracks and the album release. And so we have all that engaged.
Well,
We're dealing with that. And so here I am. I did my hair, you know.
I have one quick question for you, and then I'll let you go because the world wants to speak to Ross Valory today. Can I throw this one more at you? And it's a positive clickbait question.
Sure.
Okay, so in writing a book about David Lee Roth over the past few years, I interviewed your old buddy Ron Wixow from The Storm, and Ron told
Ronnie.
me that when he was playing in The Storm towards the end, he was playing with David Lee Roth all day in rehearsals, and then flying
Yeah,
to the
yeah, I
Bay Area
remembered. Yeah,
to do your last fulfilled kind of gigs. Now,
right.
in speaking around with David Lee Roth fans and people over the years, I know that Dave kind of begged to be on some Journey dates and that did not pan out. I'm curious if you were ever asked to play bass for Dave, because it seems like all of your friends have played bass for Dave at a certain point, between Matt Bissonette and so
I
forth.
don't recall him trying I don't recall him wait a minute, we're losing
I hear you
we
and
have a
see you
delay
loud and clear.
in video and voice. Yeah, okay. Yeah, I don't remember Dave soliciting Journey to get on the tour. No, he never asked me to play with him. Uh, but you're right. A lot of people I know, including Dave Amato, I think he was in that group with Ron. But Ron has the funniest stories about rehearsing at Dave's dad's house or something like that. It's just the way Dave went about organizing things. Hey. Anyhow, no, I did get asked by Ron. I mean by Dave. But Ron is just he's a fine player. And that about a year ago, on a moment's notice, he landed the spot playing with Steve Miller.
Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah,
that is a
great stuff.
prime gig. It's kind of like Wally from Chicago went from being percussionist to drummer. And Ron, didn't he go from percussionist to drummer with Steve Miller?
Ron Wixow?
I thought he did, or at least it was
No,
allowed.
no, the veteran drummer had to make a decision to just stop being a traveling musician, and it was a very short notice. And Ron was given a call by Scott Bourret, our former manager of the Storm, and boom, he stepped right in there, and he's rocking. He's rocking it. He is steady, and it sounds really good. Hi, Ron. That'll
Well,
be $20.
well, Ross, thank you. As
Well,
I
thanks
said
for
earlier,
taking the time with me.
thank you for the decades of great music. Looking forward to future solo music, future gigs, etc. And just keep up all the greatness out there.
I'll let you know when it's time to play.
And I'll
How's
see you at
that?
the Iridium.
Oh, wow. I'm impressed.
Paltrocast.